to Aesthetic TV. I'm Stuart Brazell, coming to you from the stage of the Aesthetic Show in Las Vegas. One of the most interesting developments in aesthetic medicine is adipose-derived stem cells. These cells are useful for the development of novel therapies that seem to invoke the proverbial fountain of youth. For example, anti-aging procedures for facial rejuvenation, breast augmentation, and as alternatives to facial injectables. Both plant and animal-based stem cells offer tremendous potential, and researchers at the forefront of stem cell-based regenerative medicine are tasked with utilizing rigorous standards in research, data collection, and marketing of stem cell therapies. With the latest information on stem cell technology and advice for physicians wishing to expand their practices into the area of adipose stem cells, we welcome the co-founders of Cell Surgical Network, Dr. Mark Berman and Dr. Elliot Lander. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
So tell us about the potential of using different types of stem cells in medicine.
We're actually using adipose-derived cells, and there are different types of stem cells in fat. They're what we call mesenchymal, which are kind of like your body parts. These are cells that can convert into bone, cartilage, muscle, nerve, connective tissue, okay? But there's also hemopoietic. These are blood stem cells. So those are the two basic parts in fat. These cells we acquire as what we call stromal vascular fraction. We say it SVF. You'll hear that term all the time, SVF. Anyway, this has all these different cells in it. And we have literature now to show these cells can convert into almost any body part. It's really quite fascinating.
Now, is this what a stem cell looks like?
Actually, this is a very beautiful representation. Stem cells generally are very boring little discs that have no special features, and that's the way they're supposed to be because they're wannabes. I call them the Maytag repairmen. They just sit around waiting for a job, and then they change from these very boring little discs that don't look like anything into all the fascinating things that we need, such as muscle, cartilage, even nerve tissue.
And the term stem cell is a much broader term that covers various kinds of mother cells, right?
We think of it this way. Stem cell is an unspecialized cell. It's got all your DNA in there, but it hasn't become its final product yet. Our whole body is loaded with cells. That's what we are. We're dozens of trillions of cells. And the stem cells are spare parts. And so all of our organs come with stem cells, and we use them up as we get older. I'm using them up right now in my face. Fat cells live 7 to 10 years. They start dying, and if you don't have a stem cell to replace it, you start looking older.
So am I losing my stem cells right now too?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You're hanging on. You're doing a good job.
So, contrary to widespread misinformation, these cells are not derived from human embryos, right?
It's a very important topic. Stem cells can be in human embryos, but the stem cells that we're using for investigative work are from adult tissues. And the ones from embryonic tissues, the embryonic stem cells, can potentially form tumors, whereas the adult stem cells that we're working with, and almost everyone in the United States is working with now, they come from fat, bone marrow, and other areas. They do not form tumors.
And how are these cells being used in aesthetic procedures?
The most common use of it is to take fat, remove the stem cells, and then add them to extra fat so that you fortify the fat and then use the fat as a means of increasing breast size or increasing the volume of your face. Different areas where you're changing the conformation of somebody's body. There are so many things you can do with it for plastic surgical purposes, but it's through the roof what you can do with for therapy. We tell everybody if all we treated was right knee arthritis, there would be an unlimited number of people. And so what you have to understand is all of our body part is made up of cells. So if somebody gets arthritis, what's happening? Their cartilage is breaking down and they're giving off signals. Right now, it attracts cells to your body to try to repair it. The repair cells are mostly inflammatory cells, and the end result is a lot of pain. If you could put stem cells in that area, they would be signaled to repair the cartilage and get rid of the pain and actually restore the joint. So you can look at almost any part of your body that's falling apart because of cell damage. And if you could use stem cells, you could actually repair that part.
See, I think that makes such perfect sense. I have a hip injury from ballet that is killing me. And I'm looking at you and I'm like, help.
Talk to my wife. My wife was our second patient. She had a bad hip from years of running. For 3.5 years, she suffered from hip pain. And then we gave her a cell treatment, and she's been pain-free now going on 6 years.
Wow. So what will it take for stem cell therapies to truly become mainstream? Here I am, I'm excited so that everyone can take advantage of these medical applications.
You know, Mark and I addressed this question back in 2010 when we started doing this work. And we understood that for this to become accepted, since there were people doing it, but they were a bit fringy and there were some clinics offshore, but for us to sort of lead the charge in the US, we'd have to really look at this in a very rigorous way. We'd have to study outcomes, we'd have to study safety, we'd have to collect all that information in a large computerized database, which we now use that collects data from actually all over the world. We have the largest database in the world of outcomes and safety and efficacy for cell-based therapies. With that data, we can then draw scientific conclusions and take it to, you know, whether it's colleagues, insurance companies, regulators, and show them what we're doing and how this is effective and how it can help people. And with that data, that's really our tool that we're going to use to move this field forward.
Get rid of the negative stigma and show all the positive things that can come of this.
Stem cell work has been stuck in the lab. The PhDs have been cornering the market on stem cells and telling us it's going to be 5 to 10 years, for about 20 years, I think, until they come out. We have a unique ability to actually produce the cells as a surgical procedure in a very neat, simple, safe manner. It's a 5-minute procedure under local anesthesia to collect the fat.
And that's no time at all.
No, and then it takes about an hour to produce the cells.
And it doesn't hurt.
Exactly. That's what's so nice about it. It doesn't hurt. You're in, you're out.
Like pain-free, sign me up.
And you get the cells back in about an hour. Now, what's really neat about that, it gives us an opportunity to start doing these studies. As Elliot said, we're collecting the data. So our point of view is this is really not experimental. These cells have been in our body before we ever invented medicine. They've been fixing you for a long, long time. We're just harvesting them. But it is investigational. We need to investigate and collect the data. And as we do, we're amazed by our positive findings. And also we can tweak as we go along and improve the outcomes. We can also help our PhD colleagues in the lab improve their studies. And that's exactly what's happening now. It's so much fun for us. We've actually got laboratory research going on while we're doing the clinical studies too, as part of our whole program.
So let's elaborate on this. What is the Cell Surgical Network and how does it work with the physician community?
About 2 years after Mark and I started doing cell-based therapy treatments, we formed the Cell Surgical Network because our colleagues were coming up to us and calling us and saying, we heard what you're doing, we want to join the program, we want to join your team, we want to be under the IRB, we want to collect data with you, we want to bring this into our practices. So Mark and I had to create some kind of construct that allows physicians and clinicians to bring regenerative medicine into their practices in sort of a simple, safe, turnkey way, and yet still keep up the same standards of excellence with safety, using the same materials, using the same deployment protocols, everything done the same way, and collecting data with us. That is a force multiplier. What that allowed us to do is amplify the work we're doing, and now instead of just collecting data from my office in Rancho Mirage and our other office in Beverly Hills, we're collecting data from South America, New Zealand, many sites in China,
all over
the world, and we're all doing the exact same thing the same way. So it then becomes a grassroots multi-center trial, which is very compelling.
Oh, that's very exciting. So you can help plastic surgeons and other specialists start up stem cell-based therapies within their practices, essentially.
What we did is, because I was a cosmetic surgeon, we reached out to cosmetic and plastic surgeons and said, look, you guys can start doing this because you can do liposuction. Nice little job. You do a little liposuction and you can grow this whole business. And what we did is we focused on growing a multi-specialty team. So we work with orthopedics and Elliot's a urologist. We work with a cardiologist, interventional radiologist, whole group of different doctors. We're now working on oncology. We have a team and we're doing a pilot study with oncolytic viruses that kill cancer. We're putting them into the SVF, the stem cell solution, by incubating them. and then giving them to patients. We're looking at delivering these cells directly to cancer to kill cancer, because the stem cells will home into those areas. So we have this multi-specialty
You guys are like the
system.
Avengers. I mean, you're like this super group.
It's kind of fun because now we're using our plastic surgery techniques, but we're working with a big group of doctors to affect change for a lot of different people. So instead of just working on plastic surgery, we're working on multiple areas in medicine.
So all of this sounds so exciting, but what are some of the obstacles and challenges you've come across in doing this?
I think we're quickly circumventing obstacles. Some of the early obstacles were perceptions in the community, like what are these guys doing with stem cells? I thought only stem cells have to come from a lab. I thought only PhDs in universities and big pharma can handle stem cells. But what we've really created is an entirely different model, which is a clinical, we call it translational research. It's clinical and it's surgically based. In other words, our procedure is more of a lipotransfer than it is a laboratory production of a drug. And that creates a little bit of a culture conflict between what we're doing and what they're doing, for example, in big pharma, where they're creating a model where they have stem cells in a bottle that'll be monetized and distributed and used, and approved as a drug, which might take 20 or 30 years. And we're saying, no, you don't have to wait 20 or 30 years. There's cell therapy available for your patients today. And I think people are starting to understand that this is real. And not only is it real and available, the cells we're using, I believe, are better than the ones you can get in a bottle because they're completely undifferentiated. They're the Maytag guys we talked about earlier. And they get the signals from damaged tissues and they know exactly what to do. They're not engineered in a laboratory being told what to do. They understand how to read the damage signal.
So what is your response to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration when they come down on stem cells?
Well, they're actually not. The Food and Drug Administration, interestingly, was mandated by Congress in 2001 to prevent the transmission of communicable diseases. That occurred because people were getting heart transplants with HIV or hepatitis. So the Food and Drug Administration, in order to have the authority to do that, had to set up a bunch of guidelines that gave them authority. And those were what we called human cells, tissue-based products. And that was to look at specifically stem cells also and the production of them. So if you're producing these cells, you have to show that it's safe. So we have this, we have the Food and Drug Administration asking us, are you doing it a safe way? And we can show them, yes, we're doing a surgical procedure, it's sterile, we can validate the sterility, validate the whole procedure. Now, the fact that we're doing it as a surgical procedure is a little bit different because the FDA regulates two things, drugs and devices. They don't regulate surgery. And people are confused by that because we get this all the time. You go, you're not FDA approved. Of course not. There's not a single surgery that is FDA approved. However, we are working with the FDA. Dr. Lander and myself, we have set up what we call an IDE, Investigational Device Exemption application, so we can show that this system we're using actually can be approved by the FDA. Now, all you have to do is one claim. We're going to claim that it's, good for knee arthritis, and we're going to prove it and show it, and that'll be fine. It's almost an academic issue. The reality is what we're doing is a surgical procedure. When you do surgery, there's no surgery in the world approved by the FDA. So it's very confusing to the public, and our critics would go out and say, oh, you're not FDA approved, and you're not doing this, you're not doing that.
And it gets the public's attention.
Exactly, and it's very misleading. There was an article just came out the other day suggesting we are among a group of doctors who are unauthorized by the FDA. Well, the FDA doesn't authorize medicine. We're authorized to practice medicine by the medical board of your state. And what we're doing is completely appropriate. In fact, it's more than appropriate, it's ethical to the nth degree. We have the duty to help our patients if we can. And we can, and so we're doing it.
What about people that promote physicians' so-called stem cell in a box treatments that are not effective or, perhaps even downright fake?
We really try to set the standard for how a new science should be evaluated. The way we do things under IRB, all of the doctors on our network basically sign an oath that they're not going to do irresponsible claims or advertising that's misleading. And of course, we're very, careful with our sterility and our safety. And our website is educational. There's no solicitation of patients. There's no before and after photos. And I think, the way we've set it up, really that's the way the entire industry we'd like to see move in that direction. There's no police force out there. There's still a few people out there doing things that we don't approve of. And I think the type of doctors that are attracted to work with the Cell Surgical Network, they understand the difference, and patients understand the difference. We have a lot of interest from people who say, I liked your website. I liked the fact that when I called you, I didn't have a salesperson try to talk me into something. We say, no, we don't do that. We're telling people, we're doing these investigative studies. We have this resource available for you in the US in a safe way, and we're very transparent. Our consent is 10 pages long, so people understand, not to protect ourselves legally, but to educate the patients so they understand everything. And I think if, as the field develops and matures, I think more and more centers will be, more like us, I think.
So getting back to the science, what additional research has to be defined and justified, or rather, how far are we from real stem cell in a box approaches that are efficacious and approved by the medical community?
We're doing it now. You're there now. Medicine up till now has been, how do you take care of your cells? Every illness and every disease, you treat the disease, but you don't really replace the cells. We're moving to the area I like to call CRT, cell renewal therapy. And now going forward, we are in the area of medicine where you have replacement parts in the form of cells. So we're there. It's just that we're waiting for more people to join us.
It's like
and
people
they will.
are here.
Listen, I started talking about facial fat grafting 20, 30 years ago. And in the early 90s, it dawned on me, who cares about fat grafting? We misdiagnosed aging, okay? So in those days, I was dodging tomatoes right and left because people said, oh, everything about aging we know already. I go, no, we've misdiagnosed it. You need to lift the skin this way, not just pull it back. Everybody's doing fillers, fat, all those things today. It's accepted as standard of care. What we're doing is new. And so when you do something new, first it's ridiculed, then it's violently opposed, and then everybody says, oh, we knew it all along. It's self-evident.
Everybody jumps on board.
Exactly. And so we're probably in that violently opposed position right now. But people get it.
Now, I want to talk about something I'm really interested in. Cryo banking. Is that like freezing sperm for later use, or what is this?
It's exactly like freezing sperm. Sperm is the ultimate stem cell, of course, but we're dealing with a different kind of reconstructive stem cell, and we're using the same techniques that were developed over the last 40 to 50 years to freeze sperm and eggs to make sure that when you thaw them, they're healthy and viable and they can form a new person. We are doing the same thing with adult stem cells. So we can take just an extra ounce or two from the liposuction, the mini liposuction, which is done under local. That can be sent to a cryobank where it's stored at 190 degrees below zero. And it is that person's possession for the rest of their life. That's their bioinsurance. That's their best medicine they could ever have, because it's their own stem cells, which have no other role on the planet other than to fix that person. And they have that person's DNA. And so there's no drug or pill or anything you can ever get that would be as good as an unlimited line of your own cells. And I say unlimited because the cryobank can not only freeze the cells and keep them indefinitely, but can also, under sterile conditions, they can expand them, which means they can grow them into unlimited numbers. So from that little ounce or two of fat, you can have enough stem cells to treat you for the rest of your life. You could be, 50 years down the road, you could have a stroke or a coma or a heart attack or cancer or anything, and then you can go into your own personal repository of cells. This is really the real beginning of personalized medicine.
I know, do you feel like this is the future? In 10 years,
Yes.
we're all going to have our
Yes.
money in the bank and then our stem cells in the bank?
That's exactly right.
Exactly. This is real bioinsurance. Beyond that, there are all kinds of socioeconomic issues that are involved, because we really believe that if we can give you these replacement parts, we can give it to you over and over again. Potentially, we can extend the life to 150, 200 years. And I'm talking about being strong, healthy, and viable.
I have to say, it just sounds like we're getting closer to realizing the true potential of stem cell use in medicine and medical aesthetics in particular. And I'd love to thank Dr. Berman and Dr. Lander for explaining where we've been and where we're going with this technology.
Well, the train's out of the station. So if you want to
getting
get on
on
the
the
stem
train.
cell,
Let's
you
go
want to get on
freeze-
the
let's
stem
go freeze my
cell
stem
train,
cells.
let's go.
Choo choo. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. For Aesthetic TV, I'm Stuart Brazell. Stay tuned and stay beautiful.